a lived experience panel, and she is now going to share her experiences. So take it away.
Oh, now we're ready for me.
Now we're ready
for you.
Without the ball
and the nose. Look, it's a story about me. This goes really fast. Oh, apparently not fast enough. Wow, look, there's me. This is really slow. Maybe it's just me. Okay, yeah, I can't really see those. I used to be able to walk, and so I would stand and do these, but I had a sort of accident. I was riding a bull, and I fell off. No, that's not what happened, but that's what we're going to go with. Because it sounds much more cool. Oh, look, I can see it up here. Because it sounds much more cool than what actually happened, which we're not going to go into. We're just going to go with the bull story. I was born in 1963, and autism was much, much more rare than it is today. When I was born, it was something like, I don't know, 1 in 1.7 million, and now it's 1 in, what's the latest this week? Thursday. Like 1 in 35 or something? Unless you're in New Jersey, and then it's like 1 in 17, because, you know, water. I went to a little school near here called the Benjamin J. Funk School, which sat out in the middle of a cornfield. And then I went to a school called McLean Elementary School, and that school was torn down about the year after I left. And it wasn't just torn down, like the people went in and looked at it and went, oh God, no, you can't have classes here. And they're like, well, school's supposed to start in 6 weeks. And they're like, well, you better get to building. So it was really a bad school. The classrooms opened up off the gymnasium. Yeah, which, yeah, I've given this speech to like 12-year-olds, and they'll be like, oh, really? And yet the architects at the time thought that was a good idea. Then I went to Olympia High School. I'll just glance right over that and pretend I said something nice about it. Then I went to, did I actually put that other school that's like down the road? Nope, I didn't. Okay, well then we'll ignore the crappy little school that's down the road from ISU. And I went to the University of Arizona that had a SALT program. It was the first of its kind in the nation, where they took people that had autism spectrum disorder, ADHD, ADD, all sorts of various disabilities, and put us in a specific program for that. They had separated out wheelchair, blind, deaf. Those were very different supports than we needed, and that was the first time they'd done that. They supplied us with tutors. It was fantastic. Oh, I'm not doing that. I'm doing that. All right, and then I went to graduate school at California State University, Northridge. Key word there is Northridge. So I was there during the earthquake. I'm from Illinois. I don't do earthquakes. So I left Northridge pretty damn quick. Then I went to Ireland because no earthquakes. So I went to culinary school there. That was a fantastic experience. They had a few supports there. Not a lot, but a few. And since I can't read this, and it's been a while, I take classes online now, various classes in various things. And Charlie, what's that bottom one say? Oh, so nobody else can read it either. I'm so glad I'm talking. Oh, yeah, I was a security guard. I worked as a security guard in Los Angeles, and once again, riots, Rodney King. I was there for just all the bad crap. And so then I had a job here in town. I worked as I alluded to that earlier today, as a chef and a dive guide on board the Caribbean Explorer in the Dutch West Indies, which was great, and I got out of there without killing somebody, or better yet, without being killed. I started out by miming and hissing things. I don't remember hissing things. I also, things were cut out of magazines, and I would present these to people. If I wanted chocolate, you could find an advertisement in the magazine or something for that. Part of the problem with that is the things that, a normal, 5 and 6 year old is going to want it, they're not going to be found in, Red Book in the Ladies' Home Journal. But that was sort of a precursor to PECS. And then they taught me sign language. And that really opens up a lot of communication, because for the first time, if you teach a person that is not able to verbalize, they may be able to use this, and now you can form sentences. So instead of just pointing to me and cold, I can say I am cold, if you want to use exact signed English. Because there's exact signed English, and ASL. And so that then opened up a lot of things to me. And then I would speak. And when I spoke, then everybody tried to get me to shut up. I said, all my life, speak, and then shut up. And then for my family that irritate me, which are all of them, I had a Hebrew Yiddish talker for things that I wanted to say. And so I could just plug in there, then it would say, bagayo. And they'd be knowing that I said, shut up, in a not probably the 4-letter word way that I wanted to say it, but it was polite enough. Then I used a computer for a long time, and I don't even have a laptop anymore. I have, oh crap, I've got it charging. I've got an iPad, and when I first started doing this, they didn't have iPads. iPads have absolutely revolutionized autism. They give them out in schools, I believe, to autistic students. They may give them out to everybody, I'm not sure. But there are apps for parents to keep kids on track. There are apps for kids to learn to keep themselves on track. These things are fantastic. So I'm a big fan of iPads for numerous reasons. This one would take the rest of the presentation. My experience with teachers weren't good. And I have since seen a couple of these teachers since I moved back to the United States, moved back to the area. And two of them, one in particular, asked me what I was doing these days. And I told him I was an educational consultant. And he had been a teacher. He left teaching. And we were at the Long John Silver's. And he said, as obnoxiously as he always did, what could you possibly teach teachers? Yeah. And I said to him, I don't know, Lance, how to be not you. He and his wife got up and left, and they didn't ring that little bell as you walk out the door. Then I was at Flat Top. See, I just now noticed the theme here is that these restaurants are now closed. Never caught on to that before, but I was at Flat Top and I saw a principal that I had who I'm not allowed to use his name on fear of pain of death, so I won't, but I'm tempted. I really am. Anyway, so I was with a teacher and this teacher, I saw the blood drain from his face, and he went, okay, you need to just stay really cool right now. And I'm shoving in a big mouthful of rice or something, and I'm like, what? And I look up, and there's this guy. And I decided, okay, now's my chance. I wrote a whole chapter in my book about this guy. He is like spawn of Satan. I'm going to confront this guy. So I said, they see him back by the bathroom, and I said, I need to go to the bathroom. And this guy says, I'll go with you. And I said, that's not really going to work. And he said, I'll stand outside the door. And I said, pervert. And he said, that's all right. And I said, all right, I don't really have to go. And he said, yeah, I knew that. So we bicker a little bit, and finally, I believe he says, I can't remember exactly, but I believe he says, we're just going to go. And I was like, are we? So, yeah, okay, we're going to go. So then I'm thinking, I'll just sit out here in my car for a little bit, and I'll go back in, and I'll confront this guy. Well, unfortunately, the people I was with, they really knew me. And so they circle around, and he just stops. And he's pointing to me and telling me to pull out. And he follows me all the way home. And at this point in time, there's no way I can back out of the driveway and go back to the restaurant. So I had this golden opportunity I missed. My point with this slide is, teachers, I'm old, and I remember these people. I have remembered this teacher for 40 years. And as terrible as this is going to make me sound, I just had a program that allowed me to check on people. And I realized that this guy is still alive. And I actually thought, well, that's a damn shame. Of all the people on the planet. And I'm not a violent person. I don't really wish death on anybody. And I really didn't on this guy. I was just, kind of would have gone, well, nah, not really sad about it. What you do with the children that you're helping can last 40 years. It can last a lifetime. Because if I see this guy now, and that was 20 years ago, and nobody's around, he'll know I've seen him. I'm just waiting. Understanding communication is really important. When you say something to a person, and I can't really see my examples here, but there was a teacher, a very good teacher, and I heard her say to a student, "You were really bad today." He's like, 8, don't do that. Your behavior was not very good today. Because if you say, you were bad today, I'm internalizing, I'm a bad person. You know better than that. Oh, but think about it, Scooter. If I did, you and I wouldn't be having this conversation right now, would we? No, obviously I didn't. But I must be stupid if you think I knew better than this and I didn't. What's wrong with you? That is my all-time favorite. Because first of all, if you want to ask me what's wrong with me, I am more than happy to give you a rundown. I have a list. But in the fairness of, exclusivity here, you're going to have to give me your list, and I'm guessing it's nearly as long as mine. So unless you want to have this conversation, don't ask me what's wrong with me, because I am more than happy to tell you what is wrong with you. Why is that doing that? Maybe I just animated it a couple of times. This one actually, I put this in here, but a lot of behaviors that we exhibit seem very strange to people. Hiding behind something that someone can clearly see you behind. I used to sit on a school bus with a sweatshirt with the hood up over my face because I just didn't want to interact. And there really weren't headphones and stuff like that you carried around with you at the time. That was the best I could do at hiding. Shirts would be ripped with, spit and all sorts of stuff. And I hand flap when there's a lot of light. And it's just, especially if I'm really nervous, and people look at me like, I've sprouted horns or something. And while it may seem different to teachers and educators and administrators and other students, it's important to understand that is part of the autism spectrum condition. We do try to I shouldn't say cope. We try to soothe ourselves and sort of find our own strategies to deal with things, and oftentimes that's sometimes not as socially acceptable as it could be. Obsessions. I have a lot of these. I have an obsession with writing. Dr. Seuss. I love Dr. Seuss. Look, Beretta. I hadn't thought of him for a long time, and then he just recently died. That I was kind of sad about. But I was totally obsessed with that show. Never missed a episode. I'm Jewish, so the Holocaust is kind of an obsession. Skateboarding. I used to be totally obsessed with skateboarding, and I learned this during that obsession. You can't skateboard in a cornfield, and I know this because I tried. I was going down the summit the other day, and there was a kid out in his yard with a skateboard, and I really wanted to stop and go, "Hey, dude, get on the sidewalk. That's not going to work. You can't skateboard in grass. I learned this. Let me give you some wisdom." Computers. Computers for a long time were sort of an obsession, and then it kind of died away, and now I just really don't care. They're just everywhere. Let's see. I think I mentioned this earlier. I went to school with Charlie Sumner, the son of Jesse Sumner, who killed the co-eds at ISU in the 70s. He's in prison now. But it really was such a really strange thing that I didn't understand. I don't get that behavior. So then I began to try to understand that behavior, and I still don't understand that behavior. But I tried to parlay that into a career, and I had to you had to go see an autopsy. And the autopsy, it was in a forensic osteology laboratory, because in Arizona, everything was pretty much, well, bones. And so that went into what they called the bone box for Dr. Birkby's bone box. And when my name came up, it was a murder victim, a little girl whose picture had been everywhere on billboards in town. And I just went in and went, "Yep, nope, not gonna work." And her killer, I just found out the other day, was executed less than a year ago. Had I gone down that path, it had just occurred to me that my career would have started with his victim, and he was on death row for so long, it would have ended with his execution. And I just thought, wow, did I make the right choice? Because no. Harry Potter, see, that flashed real quick, but it's still an obsession. And I think you should all go buy the Harry Potter books. Look, and see, obsessions like I just mentioned are all bad, but these are all okay for grown middle-aged men. Somebody's gonna have to explain to me the difference. Dr. Seuss, bad. The Jets are fine. Inappropriateness. Okay, yeah, I have a lot of inappropriateness. And for the sake of time, because I'm constrained to an hour, I'll just go over a couple. We used to be able to listen to music at work. Listen to music. And one day, I'm sitting there and I have my headphones on and there's this awful noise, and I turn and I said, "What is that?" And people started looking around and they said, "Well, that is," now I can't even remember who it was, like Nancy singing or something. And I went, "Oh, the hell it is, get her." So, we kind of all sat in rows with our backs to each other, and it sort of went down the way. Like, "Marty wants you, Marty wants you." It came back, and I said, "Are you singing?" And she said, "Yeah." "Stop. Because you sound like a ferret being beheaded in a file cabinet drawer, and that needs to come to an end." She didn't speak to me the rest of the day. I actually had to go back to Jackie and ask about this one. And I was told very specifically, well, first I think there was astonishment at my behavior, and then I was told, you just don't ask that, because there was this girl who said, "Do you like my hair?" "Well, don't ask." And I went, did you mean for it to come out that color? And she went, yeah. And I went, oh, yeah, well then, okay. Should I tell this story, the car? Sure. You don't even know what it is. Sure. We got time to kill, what the hell? I went to Clinton. I don't know if anybody here is familiar with Clinton, but I went to get my driver's license at the driver's ed facility in Clinton because it's small. And I'd failed a few times, and my dad finally dropped me off because they had a cart you could use. And he said, I'm going to go down here, probably get a drink or something. I don't want anything to do with this mess. So just, you're on your own. And so I walked in, and they had these old-time school desks, and there was a woman there. She must have been 90 if she was a day. And there's just this older woman and me. And the woman behind the counter says, I'll be with you in a minute. Yes, I can see you're busy. I'll wait. And so I sit down, and she's banging stuff around, and the woman in front of me, the older woman, begins to cry. And the woman behind the counter says, they're not going to let people like you take the test twice in one day in the future. And she says, I would really like to take it today. And this goes on a few times, and this woman is now really beginning to cry. And to me, that's one of the worst crimes you can do. If somebody cries, I cry. It's just, I don't know why. It's just one of those things. Anyway, so she just kept saying, they're not going to let people like you take the test twice in one day in the future. And she said, I really need to take the test today. My husband is on dialysis. If I don't get him to the hospital, he will die. And the woman behind the counter, I kid you not, said, that is not my problem, the problem of this driver's license facility in the state of Illinois. And I went, oh, hell no, you did not just do that. So I get up and I said, excuse me. And she said, I told you I would be with you in a minute. And I said, yeah, I got that. I might be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure she wants to take the test today. And she said, right, but in the future. And I'm like, yeah, I think we got that. In the future, you're not going to let people like her, like Charles Manson's mother, I guess, I'm not real sure, take the test twice in one day. But you see, it's today, not the future. You want to take the test again today, right? And she's like, yes, I want to take the test again. See, I was right. She wants to take the test again today. So the woman, everything was in paper. So she's got this stuff and she hurls it across the counter. The woman breaks out crying more, if that was even possible. And I'm like, hey, wait, come back here. What? I said, okay, I have a question. She said, is it important? And I said, yeah, I'm kind of thinking maybe. And she said, what is it? She walks back and says, what is it? And I said, are you having an off day? Or were you like weaned on horse piss, or what is the problem? Now you're laughing at that and you're clapping, but you see the problem with that was, and the lesson and the moral of this story is never piss off the woman that's going to give you your driver's license test, because I failed. She got her license though, and so I considered that a real victory. You're going to find inappropriateness with people on the spectrum. And sometimes we don't mean to do it. All I wanted was for Nancy to shut up and not sing. And don't ask me I like your hair if you don't want my honest opinion. Although now I've learned the honest opinion is, yeah, sure. Well, then don't ask. And honestly, don't they have mirrors? Emotions. I have 3 emotions. I have sparking. Did I get these on there? Sparking, staticky, and runny-brained. Those are what I label them. If you were to ask me if I'm happy or content, I'm not going to be able to tell you. I can tell you that I'm sparking. It's like the car's running, the spark plug's working. Confused or anxious. it just kind of goes with staticky. Hurt feelings, I'm disappointed, I'm angry, I'm sad. Those all kind of go with runny brain, and that's because when I was a kid, I used to think my head would hurt so bad when I cried. I actually thought it was my brain leaking out of my eyes. I learned a few years ago that wasn't true. Look, there's a cat in the hat with an umbrella eating cake, and you might be wondering what that has to do with emotions, and nothing. I just like the graphic. That's where it fit. This one, I put this one in because I saw this the other day in a group. And this is a tricky one because cutting and self-harm are really obviously very frowned upon. They always have been. And I'm aware that there are people who cut and self-harm for attention. For me, cutting and self-harm, but it was really more self-harm, was to try to make myself feel better. Something was happening and I needed to feel. Because I don't feel things like other people do. And so there was someone here earlier today who I've known for years, and he always touches me lightly, and I'd forgotten about that. Light touch hurts me. It's the tangled web of crap in my head. And so I have to go to Chuck or Jackie and go, hit me really hard in this area. And they're always pleased to comply. And, but to an outsider, that's gonna look like, I don't know, abuse, I guess. We've had people stop ringing up things at a store. I was at the McLean County Fair when someone did that, and Chuck then hit me so hard that, like, I don't know who the woman was, head of Department of Children and Family Services or something, heard the slap, was past us, turned around and walked back. And of course I'm down like this, and I come up and I'm like, thanks. And she looks and he looks at her and he's like, oh, hi, because he knew her. And she's just standing there so confused by the entire situation. If you have a student with autism and they're hitting their head, they're doing things that seem like they are perhaps for attention, it may be that they're trying to keep themselves from going into a meltdown, because that tended to be when I would drive, I would rake something into my skin, I would staple up my arm, anything to try to keep me from going into a meltdown, odd as that sounds. So if you have a student that's doing that, you might want to consider that a red flag that like a meltdown may be imminent. I've heard other people say that same thing. That's why I included that slide. So what can you do to help me? Well, first of all, don't give me, and I can't really see these very well, so I'm just kind of go over them from memory. Don't give me too much information at one time. If you want me to go get something, go get the blue cup and fill it with ice. Okay, don't go downstairs, get the blue cup, but get the red lid, fill it with ice, and take it to the bedroom, and then get another one, get the yellow cup, and fill it with coffee, and take it to Jackie out in the garage. That's just, I got blue cup out of that. I'm not gonna be able to follow any of those directions because I got lost at blue cup. Keep them very simple. Go get the blue cup, fill it with ice. I can do that. I can do 2 or 3 steps. But you give me 6, 8, 10 steps at one time, and then you're going to be mad that I didn't get that done. No, don't do that. Don't call attention to me if I'm doing something that I'm not supposed to be doing. And what comes to mind is that when I was a kid, I was swinging, and I had decided to swing on my head, holding on to the chains like this. And of course, the teacher came over running like, what are you doing, dumbass? And was screaming at me. And of course, everybody was gathered around. It was just an experiment, okay? As opposed to saying, hey, well, we don't swing like that. And if you can't swing properly today, then you're done with the swings today. You can try again tomorrow. And I would have went, okay. As opposed to having everybody gathered around and screaming at me like I was 2. Yeah, it was something I wasn't supposed to be doing. I'll grant you that. She had to stop it, but there's ways you can stop it, and there are ways you can stop it. Always consider the environment. I can't sit next to a window because I'm looking outside the window, and if I hear a bird, all I'm thinking about is, I could really strangle that little, I don't like birds. Always give me visual printouts whenever possible, and frequent breaks in water. I have discovered as I've given speeches around the country, is that a lot of people have the same thing with autistic students, is that we're always thirsty. And I don't know if that's from the medication, there's a lot of us are on medication, or if that is a natural thing that we just have, but we go through a lot of water. And I actually had somebody email me back, it kept sending me things, and like, could it be this, could it be that, could it be the other thing? And finally, I just sent her back a thing and said, is it possible he's thirsty? And she came back with, oh, yep, that was it. Okay. I would have thought you would have tried that first, that you had water available, but this one is actually really simple. When Jackie's son they wanted to take him to a restaurant because eating in restaurants is, a social thing, and people wanted to do that. And they didn't think they would ever be able to do it. So they started out by stair-stepping him into the restaurant. They pulled into the parking lot of the restaurant, and they pulled away. They chose one restaurant. And then they walked into the vestibule, and they'd walk away. And then they'd go in and they'd sit down at a table. And the restaurant knew this was going on. And then they would just get up and they would leave. And then they ordered him a glass of ice because he liked ice. And then they would leave. And then they had Sprite poured on the ice because he really liked Sprite. And then he liked spaghetti. And so they ordered spaghetti for him, which was actually spaghetti with butter and cheese or something. He doesn't do tomato sauce. But it was very specific to him. And then ice cream. So eventually they got him to the point where even as a very young child, he could sit, he knew that Sprite, then spaghetti, then ice cream. And as it was, it's the place where, I don't know, it's gone. Oh, another restaurant that's gone, what do you know? He would get a balloon on the way out. So, and then they spread that out to other restaurants. And he can pretty much go anywhere now. But they stair-step to those goals. Okay, don't generalize. Just because I can do something at, my house, we have game nights at my house, doesn't necessarily mean I might be up for a game night at somebody else's house. I can't really always generalize. So just because your student does really great in your classroom doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be able to do the same thing in the classroom of another teacher. That may need a little more work. So don't generalize automatically. Rewards have to be specific to the student. We have had people who Austin used to earn VHS tapes, and he earned his own VHS tapes back. And so they'd send the VHS tapes with him from home on Monday, and he'd earn them back during the week. I'm not sure he ever cottoned on that that's what was going on. But one day, Jackie overslept, and he got up, and it was a Monday, and he packed his own VHS tapes and headed out to the bus. So that was just the way that was done. He Sprite and cookies he would earn. And I have had people say to me, yeah, but that's food. You shouldn't do food. Okay. I live with Austin. I've known him 20 years, not his mother. And Austin's like me. He could shed a few pounds. That's true. But Austin is very productive. He owns Smelly Ellie Candle Company. He makes candles for a living. He's what I would consider very high functioning. Those kind of rewards worked for him. Would we rather have him at the stage of a 5-year-old not doing any of this stuff, because we may have withheld the rewards that worked at that time. So you just take what you can get. And I mean, maybe that's not the politically correct response, but that's my response. And I'll work for smoothies now. Give a speech, get a smoothie. Give a speech, get a smoothie. And the reward may be something so inconsequential that it may be just people taking out their car keys because a kid likes to hear the I don't know, the noise of the car keys on the keychain as he holds them by his ear and then gives them back. I've seen it. That was his reward. Great reward for him. So, and then I have other people talk about, what about the consequences and stuff? I don't know. Have you tried beating them? No, I'm kidding. I had one woman I said it to. Have you tried just beating the crap out of him? He's like, no. Seriously, you thought I was serious? No, I'm not serious. Don't hit him. There are things that the top one, he got a punch, a paper punch. So he got two, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. And if he had so many punches during the week, he got a reward. And then for things that are really terrible, breaking, not really terrible, but you're trying to get rid of it, throwing things through windows or whatever, things that you've got to stop. You have, yelling shut up at people or breaking things. If they, where's Jackie? There's Jackie. Can you explain this better? Right. I mean, eventually you're going to have consequences. I understand, and that's you're not going to be able to just have rewards. But with him, it's shut up, breaking stuff, and whatever the other one is up there. What is it? Yeah. Well, okay. He didn't really get rid of that, but neither did I. But he doesn't yell shut up so much, and he doesn't break stuff. So those things, that worked for those two things. And the arguing, he probably takes after his mother.
I don't argue.
Just, yeah, I can see you don't. Supports. I have a lot of supports that keep me going. And some of them are just, well, that one flashed up there quick, didn't it? I have a helmet. I have different helmets for different things I need. I'm a headbanger. Not so much anymore, but I am. And some days, I can get by with a normal helmet, and then some days it's just more of a full coverage kind of day. And I'll go downstairs to my room, and occasionally I'll just put that helmet on to try to diffuse a really bad experience or a bad situation. I used to sit on a ball at work. I had a butt clause. I couldn't jump too high on the ball there had to be like only so much width between my butt and the ball. Chew tubes, headphones, the kind that I used to wear, the kind that you wore at airports, like I was bringing in a jumbo jet. Medication takes a lot of that to keep me going. Water. Not everybody uses water as support, but it is for me. And we were someplace, ISU, I think, and I was giving a speech, and we had this big swimming pool-like thing, like a kiddie pool or something, I don't know. But we had drinks in with ice, and it was the end of the day, and at the time, this is like 15, 20 years ago, and Chuck said, get down and put all those waters into this bag or whatever. And I was like, okay. And there was still a lot of ice in this pool because it had gone, it was like 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we'd been there since like 8 o'clock in the morning with ice in all these bottles of water. And so as I'm doing that, I'm really digging the sensation of the ice cold water on my arms, and I'm thinking, it's a little hot in here. And Chuck is standing right there, and he's talking to some guy, and I decide, you know what? This is going to feel really good. So I just stick my head in the water. And I am a scuba diver, so I can hold my breath for a really long time. So I don't know what the conversation was exactly. I've just been told this. And so the guy apparently was looking at Chuck and like pointing, and Chuck is just having this conversation with this guy. And the guy finally is like, is this a problem? And Chuck's like, oh, damn it. And like hits me in the back, and like I come up with like, ice cubes stuck to me. And he's like, stop screwing around and put the ice in the thing. And this guy was just kind of like, okay, then, that's good. And Chuck's like, just don't worry about it. This is my life, dude. Cooling vests when it's really hot outside. I do not do well with the heat. And there's some that you put in water and some you have ice packs in. Weighted vests. Weighted lap pads. Things to keep you in the house, sort of like house arrest things for kids that they don't cross. They cross a threshold. For very young kids that wander. Those are amazing sports for the parents. I wear a night blind for sleep. And this is the point, I really wanted to mention this, and I haven't ever mentioned this in a presentation before. But when I mentioned I was riding that bull earlier and I fell and hurt my leg, I was taken to the hospital from Gibson City because the reality of that was clearly it was a really stupid accident. I fell off a curb in Gibson City. I just like the bull story better. So they called an ambulance because I knew right away the leg was broke. I didn't know how bad, but it was broke. And they get me to Broman, and Broman says, well, there's nothing we can do. We got to call a critical care ambulance, and she's got to go to Carl in Champaign. So I get to Carl in Champaign, and by now, Chuck was with me, and then he had to leave. I'm in good hands. I'm in the hospital. They're called the critical care ambulance. The driver actually was a guy that I went to grade school with until I was like 8, who recognized my first name, but then was upset that I didn't recognize him. Dude, you were 8. You're now 58. 50 years has done a little bit of change. And he's like, I can't believe you didn't know who I was. Sorry, but I get to the emergency or the hospital in Champaign, and they immediately start prepping me for surgery. And at this point in time, I've lost the ability to speak. And they're asking me questions, and I'm not able to answer them. And at one point in time, I signed something. And at one point, a nurse said to another one, maybe deaf. I'm not sure. There wasn't anything on the paperwork. And I'm like, I'm not deaf, and I can't tell you I'm not deaf. Nobody signs. This is a terrible situation. And I'm beginning to panic. I'm laying there crying. The doctor happened to have a son with autism. And he was not made aware before the surgery that I had autism. And that should have been really in huge print on the front of that file that went with me to Champaign, because there was support right there in the operating room, but I didn't know it. And had he known it, Had he known I had autism, he would have done very differently. Because once he found out, he's like, oh, holy crap. And he brought in a weighted blanket. There were supports there. I mean, it would made all the difference in the world. And so our push to have some of these supports being put in doctors' offices, I thought was a good idea when Autism McLean started doing that. I didn't know how absolutely vital they would be until I was in the situation of not being able to communicate, not knowing what was going on. In what, I mean, they called the critical care ambulance. They were afraid that this compound fracture was going to go up through the arterial. What was it going to do? Bust through the artery or something? And so medical care and autism, those things have to go together. If you have a child with autism, you've got to let the hospitals and doctors know. It's vital, more so than I even thought. And then again, my supports at home are Chuck and Jackie. They come from my environment. The stuff that'll set me off, I think there was a question asked earlier today at the panel, the stuff that would set me off, and Brian started talking about the stuff that would set him off, and I was like, well, cool, he's got stuff. I've got a lot of stuff. Cars have wheels and an engine, and they need to be moving. Don't have me sitting in a car. The other day we stopped and saw Jackie's mom, and I was like, oh my God, I don't want to get out because it's such a pain to get back in. And I love Jackie's mom, but this car needs to be moving. Sauerkraut. Sauerkraut absolutely pisses me off. No reason. Bubble gum? No. No medication will set me off. Spiders. I couldn't even put an emoji of a spider. Apple will change a gun emoji in a heartbeat. But will they take away the spider emoji? No, they will not. Butterscotch pudding. Butterscotch pudding scares me to death. Literally. Birds. They fly, they crap. I don't see the point in those creatures. Brussels sprouts are heads of cabbage made by Keebler elves. Beyond nasty. Ugh. Just no. What may be setting off your student may be that the basketball that you've got in the classroom, half covered over with coats, is blue and it needs to be that stupid NBA orange color. Her Barbie at home wears a swimsuit, and this one is, I'm not really sure, maybe Mary Poppins. And it was eBay. Macaroni and cheese, it needs to be cooked in a pan on top of the stove and not baked in the oven. That is just wrong. And if I ever become president, I'm outlawing that crap right away. Bottles of water, this is your hand. It's not square. And there's no need to have a picture of a waterfall on it. It's not like it's sitting next to, I don't know, the cyanide on the counter next to it. It's not like I'm gonna go, oh, let me get like the nitroglycerin here instead. Thank God for that waterfall. Ugh. Never mind. Hey, I found the slide you did that with. Yeah, I missed that when I was doing it. Jackie said I made a note in that for you to see. Now you see what her life is like when I said I didn't see a note. I don't understand this slide at all. Well, let me tell you about this slide, Jax. You see, if you'd have been paying attention, these are people, when you have a student with autism, especially if they're in kindergarten, preschool kindergarten, what you're getting is sometimes just this wild tornado. But what you're going to end up with could be Bill Gates, Marie Curie, Albert Einstein, Keanu Reeves. These are people who are all on the spectrum, even though Jackie didn't understand that. Andy Kaufman, Daryl Hannah. Does she even do anything anymore? I haven't heard of her for a long time. All of these people have made names for themselves. Susan Boyle, who have made great strides in music, theater, technology, inventions. I don't know what I'd call chess, nor do I know what I would call Bobby Fischer. But the person that you may have may be Nikola Tesla in 40 years. You know, you've got a wild tornado, but in 40 years, this guy may invent the iPad or give us Beetlejuice. I'm going to go with the iPad being more important than Beetlejuice, but no offense to Tim Burton. And Thomas Jefferson, historical diagnosticians contend from his writing, he absolutely had autism. And I think that's probably true after reading Diagnosing Jefferson. And he gave us the Constitution. And yet he may have been on the spectrum. So keep that in mind as you're dealing with, well, crap, that wasn't supposed to happen. So keep that in mind as you're dealing with your students, that especially when they're very young, they may go on to do extraordinary things, and it may not seem like they could. Albert Einstein didn't speak until he was 6. And his mother was sent home from school with a note that said, this child is basically intellectually impaired. I can't help him. So as educators and people in education, one of the things, the greatest gift that you can give any student, and really not only just an autistic student, but any student, is that to make them aware that they matter in the course of the school, of the community, that they are accepted, and that they're a huge part of life, of your life in that school. And if you feel accepted, things come much easier. If you feel like an outcast and are ostracized, things are not going to come easy. You're not going to be wanting to try to please the teacher. You're going to be fighting the teacher every step of the way. And if you treat that child and make that child aware that he matters and he is important in that classroom and to your world and to the world of the school, he's going to be trying, and it's going to be a much more pleasant experience for both you and the student. And the student is going to make more leaps and bounds in progress than they would if they did not think that they mattered, if they were taught and treated like they were inconsequential and they were a burden on everything. So give them the gift of self-esteem. Everything comes from that first gift of self-esteem. You have to give them that, because if you don't, you're not going to get anywhere. You just won't. And it's the end. Look, I even say it. That's the end. Okay, well, it's kind of cockeyed, but so am I, so that works out. Okay, are there questions?
There are microphones at the front. Come on up and ask Marty questions.
Oh, there's the microphone. I wondered where it was.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, you had mentioned something about writing something in a chapter of your book. Is that book out yet, or what is the name of it? Can I have some info on that?
Oh, the book. I haven't done anything. The book, Jackie, you want to take the book question?
It's a self-published book. We have copies at home, so you can reach out and email us, and we can get you a copy. Thank you.
Didn't I write another one we didn't do anything with? Yeah. Let me tell you about books. I write articles. In my head, I can hold 3 at a time. And then this is true. People don't seem to get this. But anyway, I can hold 3 articles at a time in my head. And then I have to type them out to make room. And I'll just be like doing something, and all of a sudden my brain will just sort of begin writing an article. I can't even explain it. It's really weird. And so I just, for a while, was writing all the time. It's just like my brain was cycling through these things, and I was writing them down. And I was sending them to Jackie, and Jackie said, let's put them in a book. And I never sent them to a publisher or anything like that. They're not, it's kind of the bathroom reader of autism stories. And I wasn't really sure how in the world you would actually, publish anything like this. So I never tried. It was just something that we did and cobbled together the articles. So, but I did an entire chapter on that guy. That was more than just a little article. That was a screw you. Yeah, screw you. I was going to go on with that, but maybe I better not. Anything else? Cool.
Thank you, Marty.
You are welcome. Who's buying me a smoothie?